All right, good morning, everybody. It is, Wednesday, almost the end of May, and we are rearing to go early in the morning. I have a fantastic guest this morning, someone I've been waiting to sit and talk to for a very long time, and there are not a lot of those in South Africa because, hey, either they've been here before or I don't want to talk to them. So I'm delighted to have someone who's very, very busy. He's got a lot going on. And he made some time for us this morning, which I'm delighted about. And his name is Mo Flava. Yes, Mo Flava. How the hell are you, my friend?
I am very upset that you woke me up at this time of the morning. Again, I did 8 years of this rubbish in my radio career. You know what? I'm like, done.
Yeah, I know.
And then there it is.
It's a punishment, right? I mean, why do we... I know because the audience are obviously doing it to themselves too. They're the kind of people who want to get up and get going early in the morning.
Sure.
And obviously... I think if you start your day fresh and you start with all the information and you're ahead of everybody else, like you can have a really good lead on everybody. And that makes sense to me. But I think we punish ourselves.
I think from a radio broadcaster point of view, when we know that we've got the option of doing maybe other day parts, I think it is torture. Look, it's a great honor.
Well, no, let's be fair, though. I mean, if you're not doing morning or afternoon... You're just not in the high-stakes game.
Are you talking about me now?
Yeah, well, I mean, you know this because you've done all of it. You've done all radio. I mean, I've done midnight to 4 a.m. I've done 4 in the morning to 6 a.m. So you're not married to a slot, but you know that's where most of the attention goes.
Oh, absolutely, right? Because that's where there's the most activity in terms of audiences. And that's where you can really sort of shift things. But
drive time, because that's when people... Yes. I mean, it made sense once because people would be driving in their cars, and I think for live radio it still does.
Sure.
And I always felt like part of why I had to do this was so that it would be one less obstacle in the way for people who were coming to podcasts, right?
Yeah.
It's like, I've already put all these obstacles in your way. Yeah. Now it's a totally different game, but I'll tell you what, I'll just keep it at the same time. I made a rod for my own back, man.
Listen, I commend you for your tenacity and your will.
Stupidity? What are you talking about?
That's actually the word. No, because seriously, I mean, like I'm saying, I mean, I did morning radio for 8 years between YFM and Metro. In fact, the Metro is even worse. We started at 5. I mean, the argument was, well, you know, audiences do wake up earlier in urban areas, which... You know, they've given evidence, etc. People getting up really early to hit the 7 a.m. mark at work, etc. But my God.
No, that's disgusting.
It's really brutal.
Because as it is for this one, and I wonder if yours was similar. For this, I'm up at like 4:30. I know a lot of people who are. So it's not just me. You know, there's some gogo somewhere who has to support like 17 of her family, and she's up at like 4 a.m. Maybe even earlier.
I mean, on my way here,
and she's catching 4 taxis before she can even get to work, and then someone says, "Oh my God, you're late." You know,
it's like, do you know what I've been through?
So I get it, but I don't know why this rat race thing. I saw such a great video the other day. I think it was an ad that they played somewhere in the 90s or 2000s. Of these people in the rat race, and it's literally rats in this video. I'm gonna see if I can find it and we can play it later because it's so depressing. They all are trying to do things to improve their lives, and then the one rat's in the car, the sports car, but there's traffic, so he's stuck with all the other people in the traffic.
Exactly.
Then he gets to be really important and influential in his community. But eventually they all walk straight into the trap and the trap snaps over their neck and you're like, God, this is so sad. But it does feel like that sometimes with all of us, right?
Yeah. I think it's got to do with, I mean, in my case, morning radio is something I've always respected and I've always admired.
Sure.
I've never actually asked to be on any radio show or any slot. Every show I've ever done, you know, was a manager saying, I think there's something there. So now that I've done it and this thing that I had a great admiration for, you know, I kind of scratched that itch. I'm like, well, that's it. I'm satisfied with having done morning radio. It was good for what it was and when it was. But right now, and, you know, even my radio managers have asked me before, which show? I'm like, definitely not breakfast.
No, but I'm sure that they've also tried to upsell you on like other shows when you've been not in prime time on mornings or afternoons because they know that you can handle those. But I think it's great. I mean, listen, I said that about radio. I was like, well, I've done this now. It's time for new things. And you you felt like that after morning radio. So we've learned the opposite lesson. If I can learn your lesson and you learn mine, maybe we'll both go places. Who knows? But here we are. Listen, it's just amazing to me. I mean, you started off, when I first heard of you, you were on YFM, making a big noise there and really like breaking a lot of boundaries, doing a lot of really interesting, cool stuff. And it's hard to do that in radio now.
Why?
Well, I don't know because I don't listen to a lot of it, but that's what people who are in radio tell me. And by the way, while we're talking about radio, I do think it's valuable to, and certainly something I want to do, to just say that I'm very sad to hear the news about Darren Scott yesterday. I can honestly say we were never like the closest of friends, but he was always very kind to me. We always had great conversations. I got on with him very, very well when we were in the same room together. And he was a pioneer in so many ways. And I'm very, very sad. I know he was very ill at the end. He had lots of health challenges, and there was cancer, and we tried to do a fundraiser for him. A whole lot of really close friends of his got together, and they were looking after him right to the end. And I suppose when it all adds up, he touched a lot of lives, made a lot of people feel better in the traffic, which is kind of all we want, right, as radio people.
Yeah, the impact that we always talk about.
Yeah, and I know that there were probably, like with all of us, things about Darren that people would say kind of as a joke or as an insult or because they didn't like him. But, in the end, none of that stuff matters because he lived a full and exciting life. And, man, he could party. That guy was so much fun to hang around with. I remember I just started at 5, and he said to me, I had the show after his at that stage, and he was like, well, when you finish your show, come and join me. I'm doing this gig somewhere. I was like, okay, well, it's on my way home. I might as well. I popped in there, and I had no idea. Like the number of, he used to make us drink things called suitcases.
Right.
You remember that? There was like passion fruit in one thing and then Jack Daniels in the other.
I mean, who still drinks that?
Nobody drinks it anymore, but that was his thing.
Yeah.
And he was just always really kind. And, in radio, there can be a lot of sniping and shittiness. It's like in any business. I'm sure in lawyers' firms, the one lawyer doesn't like, they made that Suits show out of that.
Yeah.
So they are in lawyers' firms.
Yeah.
I don't know about engineers. Maybe them too. Maybe engineers get really bitchy with each other in the kitchen in the morning.
But who can make the biggest bridge?
Yeah, he was never like
Yeah.
that. He was never threatened by me. I was never anything but respectful, I hope, with him. But I thought he was a good guy. And the last interview we had was here, which was probably about 4 or 5 months ago. And I said to him then, Darren, you're like a cockroach. Nothing's going to take you. and obviously we knew he wasn't well. So, it was only a matter of time. And that's true for all of us. Mo, you ever think about mortality?
I was telling the gentleman who was doing my garden the other day, because the gentleman who used to do it before, Chris, just recently passed away.
I like the way we have to say, because this country is so sensitive about shit. The gentleman who does my garden.
Yeah, because I'm not going to call him a gardener.
Yeah.
Absolutely
of course
not.
not. Yeah.
Absolutely not.
Sure.
And he was a gentleman, the late Chris. And I was saying to, his partner who's now taken over, sort of, the whole thing of looking after my lawn, etc. I said, we all, like, every day that we live is that one step closer to this destination.
Yeah.
Right? So you've always got to think about, like, what you're going to do. And sometimes nobody wants to think about that day because we would rather live. So I've just chosen to rather live. I don't always think about, like, the day that happens, the day my time is up.
How old are you now?
I'm 40.
40. Okay.
Yeah. I don't know what my legacy is going to be by then. I don't know what people are going to say to about me at my funeral,
do you
etc.
care? It's almost like you
I'm
have
gone.
no control over those things.
It's all
right?
said and
Yeah.
done.
Right.
Those that are left behind are the ones who are left to care, to say, oh, well, how can you say that about my dad? Or, how can you say that about my brother?
But here's the proof, is that, Nelson Mandela lived this incredible life. And ever since then, there's been a foundation that's meant to look after his legacy. I think they do a reasonably good job. But, even that's debatable. And then he's got this family of his who just keep embarrassing him at every turn. And you think if Madiba couldn't get it right in death and after death, then what chance do Mo Flava and Gareth Cliff have? You know, we're screwed. So we may as well just enjoy it and not worry too much about that stuff. You think about even great people are still alive. I'm sure that Joe Biden thought he would have a legacy worth keeping alive.
Well, as president.
Well, I mean, I barely kept him alive as president, and now it turns out he's also been suffering from prostate cancer and probably dementia, although they still won't admit that. Barack Obama, I mean, look how much of his capital he squandered trying to support Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. And I mean, there was a time where everyone in the world thought Barack Obama was the coolest man on earth.
I still think that.
I don't know. I mean, I think he really spent a lot of that goodwill and capital trying to get shitheads elected. And
well, I mean, between the shitheads that you talk of and the shithead now, I would rather take the shitheads that he was backing.
Really? You'd rather take a woman who couldn't string a sentence together and an old man with dementia over Donald Trump?
Absolutely. Who is hell-bent on lying about our country, lying about the state of affairs in South Africa any day.
I saw your news editor on a program the other day, the EWN news editor. I didn't say your news editor, like your show's news editor. But she was on a TV show. I mean, I'm just amazed at how many people have the gall to like take with one hand in this country and then slap the hand with the other. I don't know that everything that Donald Trump said was true. I'm pretty sure he got a couple of facts screwed up and mixed up there. But there's a lot that he's saying that we need to address. And my biggest point about that whole meeting is it's finally got the ANC to be treated like adults on the international political sphere and realm, because they haven't been. They've been treated with kid gloves. The Story 94 lasted for 30 years. And they've been living off of that capital too. You know, you only have so much to spend. And after Thabo Mbeki, I think we were no longer punching above our weight. For a while we were. And when Thabo was there, we were solving problems in the Congo. We were getting involved in peace processes all over the world, even in Ireland, for heaven's sake. We were considered like a place where people had figured out a better way. And I think that we lost that somehow. And this government has just been sort of patted on the head by Europeans and Americans. They've been sending us money, saying, oh, as long as you kind of keep your act together reasonably well, you don't completely trash the place, then, you know, you got our support. And now this government's being asked questions, and they're woefully unprepared to deal with them. I don't like seeing our president humiliated. I said so.
Of course.
I was on Piers Morgan's show on Monday. By the way, it'll come out later this week. I'll let you know when it makes it out. But I said, I don't like seeing our president humiliated. But the guy couldn't account for himself and hasn't, even to the people of this country. Forget about Donald Trump. He doesn't owe him an explanation. He owes us an explanation why we have massive unemployment, why there's no economic growth, why people are living in crime-infested shitholes all over this country, why women are particularly under threat. Then we can talk about farmers and all the rest of it, which is also important. But the fact that it took Donald Trump with his single-mindedness to get our president to sit there and actually answer a couple of questions is outrageous. Why don't we get that treatment from our president?
Yeah, I think there's no question about the flaws and, you know, even some of the fuck-ups that this government has performed over the years. But, you know, if you're going to talk about what happened in the Oval Office, we also have to look at the facts. And I mean, even post the meeting, when you look at some of the images that Donald Trump was just, you know, showing to the rest of the world, which were not accurate, right? The idea that there's a genocide. There is no genocide.
I've never said there was a genocide.
No, but that's what he says.
Yeah, but Donald Trump.
You know,
okay,
and that's the thing. And how do you?
I can't believe we're already on Trump and we're like 20 minutes into the show.
No, because I can see you riled up.
No, but he sucks. I'm not really, because I don't have a dog in the fight. I genuinely don't. But he sucks all the air out of the room, right? I mean, there are more people talking about him in the world right now than probably any other person. It's just amazing how he does that.
Yeah,
whether you
it's
like
to
him
be
or not.
expected. Yeah, it's to be expected. But
So,
the biggest
so a couple
issue
of
I
things
have,
he got wrong. What did you not like?
It's not a small thing. You can't say that there's a genocide, that there's a systematic, process of killing white people in South Africa. That is not factual. You talk about, women under threat. Women are not under threat. They've been killed. There's a horrific story which is making the news now about a young woman from Bloemfontein living here in Sandton who was brutally murdered and dumped somewhere in Lombardy. I mean, nobody is making enough noise. Nobody's is running to any Oval Office to say...
had posters up in our office for that baby, Kwekwe, who also... what's happened there? It'll take so long for the wheels of justice to turn.
Sure.
And those things... Don't tell me the people of this country aren't upset, because we are. But it seems like our government just have this kind of laissez-faire approach. And I mean, I don't think so. I think Cyril's more concerned about like pala than he is about gender-based violence or farm attacks or whatever else. It's not acceptable that the ANC has run things into the ground, and they have.
I mean, you look at issues around service delivery in many areas, townships, even suburbs, anywhere you go,
and especially rural areas, where we know there's none,
and there's infrastructure that's falling apart, never to be brought back again. There's just at municipal level, just the general sense of not giving a shit about anything. People don't even know why they sit in those positions. People are deployed. There's a lot of nonsense, and there are a lot of horrible truths that we have to deal with as a country, including a government that is at times inept, including people that actually have no care for the citizens of this country.
Well, that, Mo. So I'm not really interested in how many details Trump or Cyril got right or wrong, or the emotions around it, because I think when world leaders get together, there's a lot of theatrics anyway. I mean,
that was quite a theater
It was.
production.
And we'll talk in a moment. I don't know if you saw the clip of Emmanuel Macron getting off that plane. We'll talk about that just now. Talk about theatrics. But what I'm hoping comes from this, because, there's the brigade who are going, oh, Cyril was amazing. He was so great. I don't get them. And then there's that brigade who says it was a total disgrace. Donald Trump was a bully. It was unacceptable. This sort of thing shouldn't happen. Orange man, bad stuff. Both of those groups I don't really understand. I just hope that what comes out of it, regardless of what the two leaders were trying to achieve, is that now the international community pays a little bit more attention to us. I hope it brings some business here. I hope it forces the government to do the right thing in terms of all the things that they're getting wrong at the moment, which I think we all as citizens largely agree on.
But why should it have to take that, for instance? Why should it have to take...
Because this government never does anything unless they're embarrassed. Look at how...
And was it really
look at
about...
e-tolls. It took all of us as citizens to go, we're not going to pay these things.
But then that's what we need more of. And sometimes I feel like I don't know if some people are tired, of complaining and protesting.
I think people are just trying to survive.
And standing up and rather focusing on looking after themselves and building their lives, etc., and trying as much as possible to insulate themselves from...
I think they're just trying to survive.
The crime, the economy, whatever you want to call it.
I don't think most people sit down like we do probably at the end of the day and think about the big issues in the world or, Gaza or Ukraine. I think most people sit there at the end of the day and go, geez, I just got to get through tomorrow. Like, I've just got to make it through. I got kids here. I've got a bank account that's run out of money. I've got to find fuel. I've got to find transport. I've got to get some food on the table. These are the things most people are thinking about in this country. We're not a rich country. There are a couple of rich people, a tiny sprinkling of rich people in this country. Everybody else is by middle class here in this country. I mean, we say, for example, the average person in South Africa, I think when they did this last Stats South Africa said, the average salary for employed people is only between 5 and 8 grand. I don't know how people can live on 5 to 8 grand. And I know it sounds like Marie Antoinette, but my God, 5 to 8 grand is not a lot of money. If that's the average, then if you're earning 10, 20, more than that,
you're above average
you're
in
like,
earnings.
You're rich, but even those people
It's tough.
are taxed at 45, so that's already gone. Half your money is gone already. Then you have to try and make the rest work. People are living beyond their means, which is maybe their fault, but it's also
The pressure.
you want to live in an optimistic place where you can achieve great things because there's a prosperous future ahead.
Yeah.
You're going to make it better. We're a very positive country. People want to imagine tomorrow is going to be better than today.
And there is an idea that South Africa could be so amazing and so fantastic. And in pockets, there is that. But there's just so much calamity in other areas and so much frustration. Everybody's got their frustrations. It's not frustrations that are just, nestled in one corner or one racial group or one ethnic group. Everybody's got something that is a deep, deep frustration. And even within all of that, there's a lot of optimism, but there's also got to be a lot of reality. One thing I did take from that meeting in the Oval Office is that generally we need to start being a government that has our shit in order. Because there are certain things that we're experiencing for the first time, like what we saw last week, and there'll be many others. And we need to be able to be organized generally and clear and have a vision on what we're trying to do and where we're trying to go. Otherwise, we're going to keep having situations like that, where you walk into a room full of non-truths and still you've got no way
you still get embarrassed
of getting out of it. Exactly. Correct. And that's got to do with our level of organization.
It makes us look like we're like a bit banana republic,
so
which is not a look we want.
No. And so the question is it on us as citizens to say we will be that? We will get our shit in order as citizens and not be too reliant on government. The problem with that, though, is that there's so many things that the government needs to get right. If you wake up in the morning and there's an outage in your area, I mean, there's fuck all you can do about it.
Let me tell you, the last week and a half, I haven't had any power at home. I mean, I've put in solar and everything else, but it only lasts so long. And my geysers are not connected, so I haven't had hot water for like a week and a half.
Well, I mean,
so that's great.
I think you're fine with that.
Dude, no, I hate
you need
it,
something
man.
to cool you down.
I mean, I wake up in the morning, the one pleasure you have is like a hot shower. And when you don't have it, you suddenly realize like, shit, my life was good before this.
Yes.
But that's not the government are not sabotaging this stuff. They're certainly not maintaining it. But they're not the ones who set the thing on fire or blew up the substation or whatever it was that happened. And we'll find out what that was. But we do have an urgency now. If we don't get this right soon, we are going to find ourselves, and I was looking at the numbers for our national deficit yesterday. I mean, South Africa is climbing that scale of how much we owe. This is money that the government has borrowed to pay for stuff. And we can't afford to keep on borrowing.
Yeah.
That and the people of this country are not rich enough to repay that debt. I mean, it's something like between 100 and 200,000 rand each person in this country. If we had
That's what we're in for.
If we had to spread it, that's what we're all. So you're already, take your total value, whatever that might be, assets, liabilities, add it all up, figure out assets, then subtract the liabilities, but then add the massive liability that there's another minus of it. Call it 100. Let's not say 200. That's at this stage that every South African owes. That puts you in a position that you're just not going to be able to climb out of the hole.
Yeah.
And we've got to solve these problems. And one of them is economic growth and unemployment, which you solve by opening up business, allowing people to hire more people, making it easier for them. That kind of thing is so obvious. It's like there are 4 or 5 things we could do as a country now to increase the opportunities and prosperity. And
we're still, as South Africa, well placed to do that. And sometimes it just boggles the mind why there is no will or there is no general move or effort in unison from a government standpoint to do what works. It's almost like doing what works is an exception when it should be the norm.
Well, Marco says, are you guys not going to mention the circus in Parliament yesterday? What an absolute disgrace. The EFF are pathetic, honestly. Okay, so I didn't watch. I actually don't watch the news that much, mostly because it doesn't affect me, and I'm not that interested in exactly stories like this. So I could have predicted without knowing the story that the EFF would just make a big noise because that's all they can do anymore. And I did see a clip of Cyril answering questions in Parliament. I saw Vincent, his spokesperson, Vincent Magwenya, on X, like trying to defend the president and saying it's unacceptable. Let me tell you this. It is completely unacceptable for people to behave like lunatics in Parliament. It's anywhere in the world. We've joked that in Japan they've thrown chairs at each other. All over the world. There's always some group of people in Parliament who are going to behave like this. And it's embarrassing because people somewhere voted for those guys. And instead of representing those people and treating them with seriousness and taking their job seriously, they just cause trouble. So I'm not going to be a part of that by watching it, and I'm not going to endorse it in any way, but I'm also not going to sit here and expect better, because if you are expecting anything better from the EFF, you're going to be disappointed. Then it's on you.
I mean, my feeling is, and I also saw clippings of what happened in Parliament, etc. My feeling is the EFF perhaps at some stage felt that was the way that they could stand out, and that is somehow what, was a representation of the general frustrations of South Africans, etc. But you've also got to look at progressively what else and what other things they would be able to do in a parliament to make themselves heard, to drive points, to land messages, etc. And I'm sitting here wondering, if anyone within their constituency is sitting there thinking, when you guys go in there, this is what you need to do. And I doubt that. I'm not so sure about that. And so I don't think that play is necessary.
Well, you say play, and I agree with you. It's more theatrics, right?
Yeah. What does it achieve? So what does it achieve? So yes, there are issues.
Now. It's tired.
Is there no other way of demonstrating your disapproval of anything the president does, says, breathes, thinks, without having to do that in a parliament, which, by the way, is supposed to be an environment of robust discussion and debate, but done within, a framework of decorum and respect and that sort of stuff. I don't know how relevant the EFF are. I know that there's a lot of attention on them at the moment. But, Floyd's left, Buyiseni's left. There are a whole lot of people who've just exited. Dalimpofu. These were like the backbone of Julius's kind of hierarchy in the EFF. And I feel, now I hear that Floyd is fighting with MK as well. So who knows whether that'll last. It's great. I wish all of these losers well. In fact, the more they fracture and degrade, probably the better for all of us. I don't really have that much interest in watching Parliament, so I'm terribly sorry to disappoint you, Marco. If you're looking for that, go to one of these rubbish news networks and listen to what their analysts and commentators have to say. All the indicators are going the wrong way. Why don't we just try, if you mess with economics, it'll flounder and crash. Less regulation, not more. Well, what I like about that, thank you, Chris, is that you're giving us an actual solution, not just complaining about stuff. And I'm very nervous to just sit here and pile on every week. It's easy for everyone to go, so things are going bad. I bumped into a dude at the gym yesterday, old man. And he's like, so what do you think of... And I'm like, just listen to the show. Why must I tell you I've already blabbed on for hours on end.
Just listen to the show. I've thought it through. I've tried to put my point across on the show. Now I'm going to repeat it to you at the gym. Anyway, I said to this guy, listen, there are two kinds of South Africans. They're the ones who just sit and complain and nothing gets done. And they're the ones who are actually just going ahead, making their life better, trying to make their families' lives better, their communities' lives better. I went to I want to kill myself. I went to a AGM for our homeowners thing yesterday. No one wants to go to those things. But I looked around the room. I'm like, these are people, and they were all there. They were they had to bring chairs in. Normally at those meetings, they can't find enough people to have a quorum to vote some shit in. I mean,
must have been some serious business going on.
No,
there.
but Mo, so much of it was nonsense about whether people are allowed to build this or that, and whether we need bumps this high or that high on the roads, and stuff I really don't care about.
Yeah.
But I looked around the room and I was like, I'm glad to be in a neighborhood where people give a shit.
Yeah.
And where they give a shit about each other and they give a shit about the community, and that's good stuff. Those people are actually there. They're the heavy lifting by pitching up.
Yeah.
That's already 50% of the job done. And then we had to vote for a board, and there were like 10 people on there instead of the normal 5. And we were like, fuck, put them all on.
Yeah.
Great. Let these 10 people who volunteered, let them get in there and get going.
Sure.
I think that's great.
Because there's a will.
Yeah, but that's local government.
Sure.
So it starts there. If you don't get it right at that level,
Yeah.
you got no hope at national level.
Absolutely.
How many times does the thing the president decides actually end up affecting you directly?
Yeah. It's like you hear about billions being available for this and billions available for that, but you don't even get a drop of any of that.
No.
And so it is so critical to get our house in order from a micro point of view within our communities, our neighborhoods, etc. And, we got to find the energy from somewhere. We got to find the energy within all the frustration and all the things that make life very tricky and difficult and unsafe for a lot of people in the country.
Well, what just also makes this government look so stupid is that now that they've had their meeting at the Oval Office, apparently they are going to make an exception for Starlink.
Yeah, I heard about that and submissions being made. And
I had to read about it because someone asked on Monday on the show, and I was like, I don't know. I find out most of my news from the comment section. So I looked it up, and it looks like they're making a special carve-out. Cyril answered a question yesterday in Parliament about how, no, it's not because we had that meeting in the Oval
I mean, the timing.
But it looks like you're making an exception.
Yeah.
So why not just can the stupid stuff? The only people who've ever benefited from BEE are like 10 guys in the ANC. That's it. It's never helped anyone else. I don't know why we're clinging to this. And I see even the dumb media, who are always slowest to catch on in this country because it's mostly really, really shitty, uneducated, like ignorant people who are following some ideological bent. Even they're going, maybe it's time we ask some questions about this. Who has really benefited? Well, number one, Cyril Ramaphosa's benefited. So that's why he's such a fan, because he would never be rich if it wasn't for BEE. He started off as a politician and a trade unionist, and he set up a company because he knew what was coming, and he got the first wave. And we know who the people are who benefited in the beginning. How many ordinary black South Africans have benefited from it? You could probably count them on one hand. I'm talking about ordinary people, self-starters from nowhere. And it's connected people to the ANC. So it's an elite. It's an oligarchy. And people will say, no, but BEE works. Well, show me where outside of the ANC it's benefited people, because it hasn't.
Yeah, my biggest concern is what the outcomes are and what the purpose was. Because it goes without saying, Gareth, that there has to be change from a socioeconomic point of view.
Sure.
There's got to be a balance. There's got to be some sort of equal playing field created. It happens over time. Black people need to be taking part in owning the means of production. And there's got to be a sense from,
that sounds like socialism, though, when you say owning the means of production.
Well, call it whatever you like, but the reality, Gareth, is...
well, then you're on a losing track, because I'm afraid we've got countless examples of how that's gone down the toilet.
The reality is that black people don't participate historically for obvious reasons because of apartheid. And how then do we create a situation where we are in that space, creating, owning spaces that will benefit the majority of this country?
So tell me how... First of all, I think it's really patronizing to black people who are already in business to say that these people need some help. I mean, there are spaza shop owners and hairdressers and people who are fixing cars. You see them every day when you drive through this country, who are running businesses. They're never going to benefit from BEE. They're already trying to do whatever they have to do to make it. And we're now saying, they need... like the government to hold their hand. Remember, if the state helps you with something, eventually it'll come and take that away. You were saying earlier, we have so many people dependent on the state.
Yeah.
So that I get your idea, but this notion that it is empathetic and compassionate and good to let the government get involved in people's day-to-day business, and that somehow equality needs to be at the top of everyone's agenda. A great economist called Thomas Sowell says that it's amazing to him that intellectuals and politicians focus on poverty as if it's some kind of moral evil. And he says they never focus on what creates wealth. They're always more interested in poverty. And poverty, he said, is the natural condition of man. He said we all, at some point, were poor. And yet we regard that as being a moral evil, and we see prosperous people and we think nothing of how they made it and purely try to attach to it. And this is intellectuals and politicians mostly. But it's amazing to me that comment and that man, Thomas Sowell, probably the smartest guy alive right now, he's in his 90s. But this guy has it right. If we focused more on how to create prosperity for people rather than how to punish those who are trying their best and to forward the cause of those who are actually doing nothing, who are parasites to the system, like the politicians, I think we'd come a long way to making equality something worthy of discussion. But at this point, it's just a phrase that people throw out so they can sound like nice people. Oh, I'm a good person.
What the word equality?
Yeah.
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not.
Pen it's pen watching. Oh, okay. I thought he was watching. I wish the bosses of the South African taxi industry, I wish they could take over the spaza shop industry and run it exactly like the taxi associations. They would get the best. They would be the best way to get the spaza shop industry back in South African hands. Okay, but I think Penwell's also talking about illegal immigrants there, and he's talking about foreigners who own a lot of these places. So he's got his own angle there as well. Sorry, Mo, I interrupted you.
Look, the thing is, I'm not saying BEE is, the answer to all problems economically.
It's the answer to none.
Right?
That's what I'm saying.
I'm not even saying here that BEE has worked fantastically well. The question I'm raising is to say, how do we get to a point where there's an element of, correcting?
What's this correcting?
But Gareth, I mean, let's be honest. I mean, we know the history of South Africa.
Explain what you mean.
So the history of South Africa,
I know you can
and you
have
talk
this
about
debate with
governments enabling. The previous government did enable white people in South Africa to thrive, even economically, even in business. And I'm saying to you that we've got to be, and we can't just, walk past like that. It was a nothing fact, because the situation we're in now, from a socio-economic point of view, is a direct result of that. And then how do we then fix that? How do we then create an environment where, black businesses that don't even need government's help, for instance, are able to thrive? How do we have black people, playing key roles in key industries in South Africa without, a sense of resistance from, white people who, in most terms, run this economy? It can't just be that, it's 30
Don't
years.
you think it's embarrassing that after 30 years and all the laws that this government has tried to enact, that's still the case? Because I do. I think it's embarrassing for all of us as South Africans that despite all of this, first of all, the laws haven't clearly worked well enough. Second of all, we haven't had any approach to kind of business becoming, and despite all the window dressing that we see going on, and there's a lot of that, right, which is deeply humiliating for the people in those positions. I always feel like it's embarrassing that there are these wheedling white people who are trying so hard to ingratiate themselves with either the government or with the board of their company or with their friends at a braai, try to sound like I'm a virtuous, good person because, we just appointed this person to be the marketing director. And meanwhile, they've put that person in an unenviable position very often where they've done it just for appearance's sake. They've put a person in there and that person finds themselves just sinking because they're not supported. They're not given any real authority. It's purely like a show. And I think what a cruel thing to do to someone, first of all. Second of all, you get truly talented black people who are put in positions, but sometimes not the best positions that they could do even better. And they are regarded by people outside of the know as, he just got that because he's black. And, then he has to work twice as hard to prove that he actually earned that position. I think it's so unfair to put these stumbling blocks in front of black people, let alone, try and create some equality and trying to get the control of businesses out of the hands of white people or whatever else. We don't do the only equality that matters, Mo, because there's no such thing as economic equality. The only time that has existed is in very rare and sporadic attempts for humanity to truly enforce communism, and it just makes everyone equally poor. But you can't make people equally rich unless you provide an economy where they can all bring their talents to the party. And it felt like we were getting there during the Thabo Mbeki years. There was growth. People had the opportunity to start businesses and to make it, black and white. And we were really moving in the right direction. But equality of law is the only thing that ever matters, because that's where the government gets involved. That's where they can arrest you or fine you or punish you. And the moment they have that capricious ability, and you put that in the hands of bureaucrats and of elected popularity contest winners, everything gets a bit messy. So you can't take my phone and split it into 25 new phones for people who don't have them. You know this. This doesn't make sense.
The reality of black people in South Africa is quite complex. And, you talk about opportunities and people being put in positions. You have to be in a position because you have the credentials, because you have the qualifications.
Sure. And there are a lot of those black people in this country who are absolutely credentialed, trained, sophisticated, skilled, and are making a difference already.
And my feeling is that at times there's a resistance. There's a resistance from,
where? If you look at ads in the newspaper,
but
whoever still looks at those, they say, but basically no whites need apply. So where is this resistance? Companies are
just because that appears in a newspaper, Gareth, it doesn't mean it's a true reflection of the realities that are going on out there. We know about the realities of industries that have been predominantly white dominated, that are resisting to transform, because
what?
they want
Which
to
one?
keep the order.
Mining?
They want to maintain a certain
but which one?
Reality.
Which industry?
Multiple industries. Whether you talk about I'll give you a few examples: advertising industry, agriculture. So many, even in the engineering spaces. And then you have to wonder about the intention here. If it really is about the most qualified person, if it is about a black person that has the qualifications, the credentials to perform in that role, then why then is there still a barrier?
By the way here, Mapelo says, I prefer guests like Mo Flava who disagree with Gareth. So do I, by the way. But this comment section loses their minds and they bully guests who disagree with Gareth. Grow up, people. Well, don't worry. Mo doesn't give a shit. He's used to this. He's used to audiences disagreeing and arguing with him. That's what we do, right?
Yeah. And look, there's no question about this idea of, what equality is. And I think from the BEE perspective that you mentioned, there are a lot of black people that aren't happy with how BEE has played out.
Sure.
There is a perception, and there are, there's evidence to prove that it is elitist and it is about people who are connected.
I think the Social Research Foundation did some inquiries, and they probably are the best. They got the election results last year right, closer than anyone else. All the other supposed experts were well off the mark, and the SRF said. They polled people on BE, and they said 70% of black people in this country think it's a waste of time.
I wouldn't be opposed to that.
So then who's keeping it in place? I'll tell you who. The same people who take 40% of your paycheck. That's who. Because they're pocketing that money themselves and giving it to their nephews and their aunts and their friends. And I don't doubt that this is bad for all of us as a country, right? So we must scrap this shit. And if it's Donald Trump, because that's how we got onto this, it's always Donald Trump. I'm always at the center of the story. If he had to get Cyril there in the Oval Office with, all those ministers and golfers and God knows what else, if that comes out of it and they're now sitting going in Parliament and in the media asking questions about BE, then we're moving in the right direction. Because that hasn't worked, so we got to find something else.
Yeah, but the end goal has got to be, and I know you've got a different view on equality and you've got a different view on all of that stuff, but that's got to be the objective. Because
equality.
No.
Fairness.
Fairness,
sure.
Things need to change
I'm with you. Yeah.
to benefit everybody.
And I think that it's a good thing that we're discussing how we can get more people involved in the economy, starting their own businesses. We're a country of hustlers, right? But the big problem we have is that somewhere in this equation, 26 to 28 million people are on welfare. And it's a pittance. It's a disgrace what we call welfare in this country.
It's overwhelming.
I mean, we're talking about a couple of $100 rand, But those are people who are not even trying to find work now because they've given up. There's nothing for them in the economy. They either don't have the skills or they're far away from where it needs to be that they can put their talents to work. Or they are looking after a whole lot of kids or whatever the case may be. They're in a rural area where there just aren't opportunities for them. Who knows? It's a big problem to start talking about what's happening at the top end of the market. You know, who's on the board of RMB when we have 26 at a low estimate million people on welfare. That should be a far more important issue to us than who's at the top of companies and who has wine farms.
Because what prospects do you have if you are born in a township, you know, matriculate from a township school, and then hit a ceiling because or a wall because there's no money to take you through tertiary? You know, only one person out of 8 in your family works and not on a big salary, taking care of everybody. It almost creates this continuous cycle. So those numbers of dependency that you speak of are bound to grow. Nobody wants to see that. I, as a South African, don't want to see a situation where, you know, such a huge number of people are dependent on the state.
None of us.
We've got to get to a point where...
You know who wants to, though? The only group of people who wants that is the government themselves. Because when you're dependent on them, they can tell you what to do.
Yeah, we can't have that. We've got to have a sense where people value education, value what it can do for you, you know, contribute. And by contribute, I don't just mean, you know, starting a business. We can contribute in many different ways. We can clean up our neighborhoods. We can, you know, play a part. Many different things.
Can I tell you how nice it is to have someone in here, first of all, who thinks about these things, and I know you do, who has a point of view which you can articulate really well, and who's also been in the business, the media business, for so long that you're not immediately cowed by either my arguing with you or by people in the comment sections or the idea that this is going to cause noise for you on social media afterwards. I mean, it's just such a pleasure, dude, to actually sit with you and talk like I talk to friends of mine. Because this is what we talk about. And not all of them agree with me either. But, you know, we've almost, as a country, got to a stage now where either you pretend that you agree with someone just so you can get out of a conversation, which is what happens a lot. I do it too.
Yeah,
right?
because
like
sometimes
I said,
things
this
are
guy at the
uncomfortable
gym,
for
like
people.
he wants to have a long conversation about Cyril and Trump. But they either do that or they think, well, if I'm going to have this fight, then it means that we're enemies. And we need to reestablish the rules of passionate argument and conversation and getting excited about things you really care about, because there's nothing worse than being meh about stuff. And I think probably one of the reasons that you've done such an incredible job in radio and on TV and in South African media more generally is because you can be relied upon to care about stuff. There's so much that you can go, I don't care. That's not really something I'm interested in. But you can be asked something and you will think a bit and you'll go, this is what I think. And we need to be able to do that. More people have to do it. You know, someone said to me the other day too, I'm constantly approached by these people who have things to say to me and ask about me when I've got a show. Come and listen to the show, like the people who are here now. Thank you. This woman said, thank you for saying what you say about this country. I said to her, what are you talking about? I don't have more power than you just because I'm on my own platform. Everyone has social media now. I mean, you could get into huge trouble there, but you can also have your say. And I want South Africans to stand up and say what they think and do what they say. And I'm just thrilled that that's a possibility now, because it wasn't when we started in radio.
Yeah, and I think that's what you need, because you can't have citizens that simply don't care about the state of affairs, about
apathy. It's the
things
worst.
and even when it comes to, you know, elections, right? And we see the result of that, and we see how interesting things shape up to be. So we have to, because this is the world we live in. If you, as a South African, for instance, were watching what happened in the Oval Office and were unmoved, I would have a problem with that. You've got to feel something because this is our home, you know? This is our home. So you got to be moved, whether you thought it was a shit show, whether you thought the president and the team did well, or whether you agree that, yes, we do have big problems and this crime problem, whatever it may be, then I'd rather have that than people who don't care. I'd rather have people reporting traffic lights that don't work every day.
Yeah.
Right?
We need the Karens.
we need them. We need Karen to really be in there and care about what's going on in our country.
Here's Karabo, who says, 100% thank you, Gareth. Different views are important. For goodness sake, we're human beings bound to have different opinions. Yeah, we got to a stage, though, where, and I think we're still in there in some places. Like X is just full of really angry people, and there's a lot of just people having a go at each other. They see each other as enemies.
Yeah.
Right? And we didn't used to be that country.
Absolutely. X was, honestly, when it was Twitter, it really was a great place to be.
But even radio, before that.
Yeah.
I mean, we would essentially be competing for audiences with each other. But there was always this fun collegiality. And it used to be fun to have debates and conversations. I mean, someone was on here the other day and she was saying that, it was Tumi Morake. And she was telling me that Felicia Mabuza-Sattel, who now lives in Atlanta, you remember she used to have that TV show, right?
I used to love that show.
And it was so controversial, the things that she was doing. She had white people and black people, old, young, rich, poor, and she talked about the lot. And it wasn't adversarial.
Yeah.
It was like, we got to get this country talking. Look at what 702, your sister station, because you're at 947 now, what they did in the beginning. And by the way, it's also worth mentioning Izzy Kirsch, who started 702, who also died the other day, sadly. 702 did a lot to start conversations. You know, they were interviewing top ANC people before 92 even, before they'd been unbanned, 1990. And they were interviewing these people, and just getting people to hear these voices and these opinions is massively important.
You talk about really two good examples with Felicia Mabuza-Sattel, who, I was already born, grew up watching the talk shows and, 702 back then. And the idea was to get different voices, different perspectives across. That's exactly what it was on the Felicia Mabuza-Sattel. It's to say we get together in a room as South Africans and we figure our shit out. But we've got to have solutions that work. And that's what we need. We need to figure things out together. I hate the divisiveness that's going on right now. Maybe X is just, not a true reflection of how everybody feels. And I truly agree, because all you see is racist this, the racial that, racist this, racial that.
Because what happens when people aren't doing well and they're feeling threatened, they revert to a very tribal mentality. That's how people are.
I want to believe in my heart of hearts that most South Africans don't see things that way with all the rubbish we're seeing on X right now. That in a room together, we can figure shit out. And I think we need to also, as citizens, realize that how much power we actually have.
We do.
Right?
Lucky Matlapeng says, I only disagree with Mo Flava on X when it comes to football.
I'm assuming they're not a Kaizer Chiefs fan.
No, probably that's what it is. Gareth, I hope you told Piers about coloured people. We always get left out of the conversation, says Astrophysics. Listen, you'll see the clip later this week. It's very difficult on those shows, as you will know too, Mo, having been on many of them. These panel discussion shows where they've got 40 minutes. Everybody has to have their say. You don't really get to make any extremely important points. You probably get 2 opportunities to speak during the whole thing. And I was on with 3 other people. I don't expect fireworks. It's not like that. And these shows are also, they're trying to get sound bites and get people fighting. And I didn't fight with anyone. You'll be disappointed.
You didn't fight with anyone?
I didn't fight with anyone. You'll be disappointed to know.
You like Cyril now. You go in there, hat in hand, on the Piers Morgan show. I think sometimes it's better to make sense and be the adult in the room than to try and do something for your own reputation. I don't really care if I'm ever on the Piers Morgan show again. And I think what I said was true and was sensible. And if that's not exciting enough, then they don't have to have me back. I hope you represented South Africa well, Gareth.
I hope I did.
Because at some stage,
I think that was my purpose.
we're the corner.
I think that's why I was there. No, but that's the thing. People will will try and tout their point of view. And these days, the entire internet is basically just a reputation-making and destroying machine. I don't think that that's good for any of us in the long run. If you are chasing clout and you're trying to trend or go viral or any of those things, you're really setting yourself up for a huge amount of hurt down the line.
It's interesting you say,
because you've been in this media business for 25, 30 years. You have to think long term.
You look at, when you talk about reputation, everybody, wants to protect their reputation, and public figures and celebrities more than anybody else. And you look at some of the stuff that happens on social media where their personal business is blasted all over there purely to get their attention so they can trend, the gimmicks, etc. And this is stuff that we've seen for a long time, even before Instagram was a thing, even before there was TikTok. We saw this sort of thing, and I've always personally had a big issue. That's why I never, put my personal stuff out there that I wouldn't want, people to know about, or that I wouldn't be comfortable to discuss in public.
Yeah, you don't talk about your wife, your kids. You don't talk about your personal life.
And even if I do, it's within context.
Except if it's like something anecdotal, which you might share on your show about how, I was shopping with the wife the other day and this happened. But you don't go on there and like talk about your private conversations with her about the kids.
Yeah. I mean, it's a mess. And you're right. Reputation management is huge.
You're not saying your life's a mess. Just let's be clear, because someone's going to quote you out of context.
No.
He's saying it's a mess when people do that. And I agree with you.
Absolutely. So the space we're in now has created a situation.
I saved you a lot of pain.
Yeah, brilliantly done. I think a lot of
Mo
people.
Flava says his private life is a mess. Can you imagine?
But I mean, it is true about how we need to be a little bit more cognizant about our reputations, and I think most people are not idiots. I think that people know and understand the value of a good reputation, but they put so much on the line. And this thing of trending and going viral and being on everybody's WhatsApp group, and I don't know what the fascination and the desire is.
Well, really. we can get into that. I mean, we've got to take a break at some point, and we'll come back with Mo Flava in just a minute. There are a couple of questions here. Piers is just Jerry Springer on the internet. People are showing their true colors on X. When is the show? The clip will go out this week. They didn't give me a date, so
and you didn't ask either.
Well, no. The producer said to me, "We'll let you know." So it's either today or tomorrow or Friday. That's all I know.
And I'm really interested in, because here's the thing: every time I see a South African on these international shows, I really, I'm really interested to see what's being said. It doesn't matter the topic, right? So I'm really keen to see what Gareth Cliff was saying to Piers Morgan. Because some people feel you guys are on the same WhatsApp group. You do know that.
I know, and I think people
how do you
will...
feel about that?
He did say something to me like, "Oh, I see you pulling a lot of faces there, Gareth." I'm like, Piers, that's what you do for a living. But anyway, I'll let you know as soon as it's on, and we'll be back in just a moment. Don't go anywhere. Mo Flava's with us this morning. It's Wednesday. Get up, get going, start the day. Let's kick some ass.
Is expensive, so if Zara is doing it for cheap, why shouldn't we just buy it from them?
We came into the market, we made a statement that we are going straight into the luxury sector.
The Maxhosa brand made its mark internationally, and Laduma believes that its authenticity makes it what it is today.
Men can have orgasms without ejaculating. Men can also have multiple orgasms. And men can also have full body orgasms. So that sex is more about pleasure than about orgasm. And that's where we start getting men out of the idea of it's all about an orgasm.
control
for
yourself.
example, there's a practice called an expanded orgasm, which is about being in an orgasmic state. So a woman can be in an orgasmic state for over 2 or 3 hours. So just take a few breaths like that. If you focus your awareness during a sexual experience on this breath, immediately something in your body is going to start to change.
We might get orgasms, guys.
All right, we're back, and we are live with Mo Flava this morning, the Gareth Cliff Show on the Real Network. Subscribe, blah, blah, blah. I hate telling people to do this stuff. Simpiwe, what am I meant to say? Subscribe, like, and comment. And don't take it from me, take it from Simpiwe. She's the real boss of the show this morning, standing in and producing. Thank you very much. Sims, along with Flex, James is away for this week, so you can start abusing him again next week. All right, because that's what people like to do, abuse the producer. Who knows? I don't know how that started. All right, so let's get into some stuff. We were talking about radio a little bit, and I said to Mo during the break that I don't even know what's going on radio, and that's for a good reason, because I don't want to be seen to be one of those people who isn't in radio anymore and sounds even the slightest bit bitter, because I know from people like you or from Anele and Fresh and the few people in radio that I'm in contact with that things are going fine, right? That's all I need to know.
Well, yeah,
It's not my business anymore.
Yeah, things are going fine in the sense that there are some very talented people on air, and radio still means a lot to South Africans across the spectrum.
Absolutely,
and that is the most important thing. Can it be better? Absolutely. Can it do more? Absolutely.
I know some of the guys who are from our era, right? But I don't honestly know who's new and who's making waves. I mean, who should I be looking out for? Who do you think are like breakthrough talent?
So, not necessarily breakthrough talent, but let me throw a couple of names around of people that I enjoy listening to.
Sure.
For different reasons. So, let me start with talk. I really do enjoy Clement Manyathelo on 702. He's actually on at the same time as me, so...
Well, that's difficult.
Yeah, exactly. So before I did this 9 to 12 show that I do now, 947, I would always hop across and listening in on whatever he's got to say. I really enjoy his perspective on stuff, right? I really enjoy how he handled the content, how he engages with the listeners on a number of issues. Politics, life.
He seems like a very likable guy.
He is.
I hear from, again, not a big listener to radio, but I hear good things about Clement from people, and that he's fun, he's friendly.
Sure.
He seems to be well admired.
Yeah,
that's nice.
And purely from, I think, the work he does on air, and I think, radio makes you more personable than maybe what he does on television, where he's always dealing with hard news and all of that stuff on SABC.
Yeah.
But his radio show really is quite engaging. I enjoy Ayanda MVP. She's currently on YFM. She's a real talent. I love her energy, and I know
Ayanda.
Man. She's such an amazing, balanced broadcaster. She understands, perspectives. She knows that what is important is what you do on air, not necessarily what you're posting about your show on social media, because people don't listen like that in essence.
Right.
It's listener first and everything else after. I enjoy Nick Hammond, who's on 5. I think he's quite, I like his mind, and he's quite creative in a lot of things that he does. So those are just some of the shows that I really admire.
Okay. No,
some of the people that I enjoy listening to. Yeah.
Honestly, I don't want to have no answer when people ask these things, and I want to say something positive, if anything. Right. At least I got some, and we can get these people on the show. Did you guys write down those names?
Don't go with what Gareth is saying about radio. But it's interesting you say that because you talk about how you don't listen. Is it because you don't like what you hear, or
No,
you think what you...
I don't listen because when I get into the car, I've got a stack of playlists I listen to. Of either I'm listening to music, which is rare now, or it's podcasts, because there are certain subjects I'm interested in. I don't really want to hear a DJ riffing on the latest song or talking about sport or news. So I've become a convert to this stuff. So it's not that radio is shit to me. It's that I've found something better for me. I'm not saying that's true for everybody.
Absolutely.
Some people like the live stuff. I mean, partly what we're doing here is partly a radio show. So I understand that that's an attractive idea to some people. And for some people, it's important to be up to date with the news and get a little bit of a sports update and know that this is happening right here and now, and you can comment on it and call in or whatever. There's something very magical about that.
Absolutely. I'm curious about this conversion because I'm going to assume, Gareth, that you grew up listening to radio.
Yeah,
right?
hell yeah.
So to move from...
There wasn't anything else.
Yeah, to move from listening to radio, like as your main source, and then completely shutting it out and switching to podcast, was that an easy thing to do, even as a broadcaster, because that was your medium,
so
right?
It started for me before I'd even stopped doing radio. I started listening to podcasts virtually when it became a thing. And I'm interested in a lot of weird shit. So I'll listen to podcasts about history, for example. Which
I love history.
Yeah. So this is great. So there are a couple of those. Dan Carlin. There's the one that Tom Holland and Dominic Sandbrook do. And I listen to these things. I was listening to one yesterday about the Punic War, the Romans versus the Carthaginians. Now, I know that there are only a few hundred, maybe 1,000 people who are as interested in that stuff as I am. Okay, but would I rather listen to that than a pop culture thing on South African music? Absolutely. But that's for me. And I'm not telling everybody else to do that.
Did you feel like you were betraying radio? Did you feel like was there a conflict?
No, because
because you invested. I mean, this is the thing you've been doing for so many years.
No, so I'm also not attached to the idea of podcasts in that way. I'm not romantic about it, or the way you use the word betray. Storytelling, which is such an important part of good radio.
That's the essence of it, actually.
Exactly. It's the same thing. That is what you rely on in podcasting. And someone who's a great storyteller, or who can make you laugh, make you think, make you cry, involve you in something that you're not actually there for. You're listening across distance and time. That's a skill that applies equally to radio as it does to podcasting.
It's vital.
I just don't like the format. I don't feel it works. It's like, for example, we can argue about this too. Brands are ruining social media. I posted a thing 2 days ago by a guy who's saying, look, we all need brands to pay for stuff, right? They provide advertising, which keeps the whole media world and the social media world going. The reason that Facebook and X and Instagram are valued where they are in terms of how much they say they're worth is because they attract advertising revenue. But what's happened is brands have ruined these platforms. And as a result, people are running away to ever more different platforms to get away from brands, because it feels like when they walk into a room, like when Donald Trump does, it sucks the air out. Oh, God, here's this funeral policy advertisement. Why do I need to see that? When I've come, that's the one thing I haven't come for today, and now I'm being sold funeral advertising. So radio is just a way of doing the storytelling and the information and the making them laugh and making them cry. But podcasting is in some ways a more distilled version of that, because what we've just had, this conversation, you can't do on your show because you've got to go to commercials, you've got to go to sport, you've got to go to music, you've got to go to news.
And I'll have half the white people in Joburg saying, "Get that guy off air."
Yeah, and fuck them. Like, I'll say it because you...
Especially with some of the things we've been talking about here.
Yeah, but fuck them. I want to... When I sit with someone I care about or someone I'm interested in, I want to talk about the things that we're talking about today.
Sure.
Because The audience deserves that. We deserve it. If I'm engaged and interested, and you're engaged and interested, it's going to be interesting and engaging for other people.
Yeah,
I don't want to be doing a competition. All right, now we'll take the 5th caller here, and we'll give away a new Suzuki engine to whoever calls in, and we're going to have like this thing where you have to say something, you have to do something dumb. I mean, we used to come up with competitions every day on that show of mine, and it drove me crazy because someone was paying to give away some piece of shit to one listener and to piss off 99,999 listeners who didn't win.
Yeah,
because all it did was ruin their day, get in their way, and make no sense at all. Hey, Gerald from Fordsburg, congratulations. You've just won a fucking lawnmower. Aren't you excited? Yeah, I'm really excited. You don't sound excited, Gerald. Try and sound a little more excited because we don't want the lawnmower company to be cross with us and not pay at the end of the month. Outrageous.
I think most radio people would agree that competitions are the worst thing they have to do on air.
Oh God!
Right?
Not the
because it's a brand.
That.
It's a brand trying to convey a message, and sometimes they're trying to sell something. And you understand the game. You know, advertisers paid.
Sure.
That's the revenue. That's how we get paid.
Sure.
That's how the station makes money. That's how this engine runs, etc. So the challenge, perhaps, then is for those of us who are still on traditional radio to come up with content that almost makes all these other commercial messages, you know, whatever, as in, you know, really break through. Because there are times when the commercial messaging is really strong. When listeners are saying there are too many ads. I mean, you know, I don't want to hear that as a broadcaster. There are too many ads. You're not saying anything about my songs.
Well,
you're not saying anything about anything I've said or who I've spoken to in an interview.
It's so insulting.
You're telling me there are too many ads?
It's so insulting. Yeah.
So is it then that my content is not, you know, compelling enough that it makes the ad stand out, or is it that compelling that when there are ads, it's like no? So that's the thing, right? That's the debate.
By the way, Bitcoin But's just calling me out on this. He says the Real Network gave away 50K to One Oak last year instead of 10K to Five Oaks. Yeah, but you know, can I tell you something? It was because we wanted to get to 50K subscribers in our first couple of months. And we haven't done any of that shit since then. Have you noticed? We stopped it because we realized it was irritating for you, just for you, Bitcoin Put. It's all about you.
But you know what I do like? I do like competitions that change people's lives to some degree. But you don't have a lot of those. How often do you give away a house? Yeah. You know what I'm saying? You know what I mean? So there's... So my feeling is, you know, competitions on radio need to have some sort of meaning to listeners. It's got to have some sort of impact. It can't be that some creative had this genius idea that they wanted to have executed so they can get the Lurie Award at the end of the day.
Yeah, that's a big part of it too. Are there still radio awards? Do people give those things out?
Yeah, there are still radio awards. It's actually such a crazy story because when I was at Y for 9 years, our CEO then, Kanthan Pillay, who you know, didn't believe in the radio awards. He didn't believe in the idea of YFM participating because he felt that we wouldn't be judged for who we are because the people judging the awards don't understand what we do at YFM. They don't understand our radio. And at the time, I didn't like that. I didn't agree with that because I thought, yes, I hear you, but that's your perspective, right? Yeah. There are a lot of us here who want the recognition. And I'm just sort of speaking for broadcasters. Not so much for me. I'm not big. I've won a couple of radio awards, but I'm not. If I don't get one, also, I'm not like hacked.
But at that stage, you were starting your career and you want recognition.
Sure.
When you start. Later on, you're like, depends on what kind of recognition.
Exactly.
Not all recognition is good.
So for 9 years of my career, the first 9 years of my career, there was no acknowledgement. There was no radio award because we never participated.
Right.
And in a way, you almost don't really know how good you are other than your listeners who bump into you or, you know, tweet you or send you an email, etc. But sometimes you want to know what the industry thinks about what you do because it's just one of those things. It may not be the be-all, end-all, but it is just one of those things in your mind. So when I got to Metro, that's when I landed my first award because Metro participates, etc., etc. And for then it was quite cool. But I'm not big on awards in terms of, like not winning and being hacked and, I didn't get the Ballon d'Or of radio and
Please.
like,
Ballon d'Or of radio, please.
I suck. I suck.
That's so bad.
I lost to that guy.
I used to laugh because Unati and Kai used to tell me about the fun that you guys had in those early days at YFM. And it sounds like it was just the best place to be in so many ways, right?
Gareth, I mean, it literally was, think about like you're young.
Yeah.
You are on this platform that has got reach to
Fearless.
the people that you connect with. You can say whatever the hell you want. I mean, I remember, on Wednesdays, interestingly, on one of my radio shows that I did in the evening, 6 to 9, we used to talk about sex. But we used to bring like experts. And I remember Dr. Elna McIntosh was
she was great. Huh?
one of those, people that really transformed even my mind to say, wow.
She once put her hand up a woman on one of the shows and like, she basically handled her like a puppet. I've never seen anything like it. That was Elna McIntosh.
It's not far-fetched that she would do that. But she would come on as this sexologist and talk about sex in a very liberal, informative, engaging way. I mean, at one stage we had sex toys in the studio. I invited some of my listeners. Mostly females came through. I think it was only females.
God, yeah. All right.
They were there.
They try them out.
Right.
And how exciting.
And for the listener, I can only imagine how the theater of the mind played out there. Hearing all the buzzing and whatever. And so all of these, that's the kind of freedom we had on YFM. But we had an impact, in our space. Radio wasn't just about like, back announcing songs and playing ads. It was about having an impact in your communities across the region of Gauteng that we broadcasted in.
Slippery Pickle says, can I make slippery pickle dildos for the Real Network to hand out? Just give them to your puss guests and tell them to F themselves.
Am I one of them?
No. This guy, Slippery Pickle's rude.
I can't handle the pickle.
They're rude about everyone. And what do you think of the state of like TV? Because that's another thing you and I have done in our time.
Sure.
And I feel like very fortunate to have experienced television in the time that I did, because I don't think it's like that anymore. And it's not nostalgia talking now. We were in I think Idols, again, Unati and I, were on this show. It was the highest rated show on TV for a while it was on. There were a couple of seasons where we were unassailable at the top of the ratings. It was a high budget production.
It looked like it.
They had a crew of, hundreds of people. Everybody had a very important job to do. It was run like clockwork. It was professional. There were people who were the best in the business doing it. And I've done some TV since then, and I have to tell you, like, so much of it is just, it feels so amateurish.
What, you mean in terms of the personnel, in terms of...
Yeah, like the way that the channels put shit together now, it just feels like it's an afterthought. You can see none of them are making money. The channels are struggling. SABC struggling, ETV struggling, DSTV is struggling. They're all really having a hard time because I don't think they caught on quickly enough that things were changing.
It's interesting you say that because I, similarly like you with the radio thing, grew up a lot on TV, etc. But I don't watch TV that much anymore.
No, I don't watch it at all.
I don't know if it's because the content is shit or if it's just me selecting what I want to watch, right? So
you're making the same argument I made for podcasts.
Absolutely, to say there are certain shows that I want to watch, whether it's The Blacklist or Lioness or Homeland or documentaries or,
What is Lioness? People are telling me I got to watch this.
It's an absolutely brilliant show. It's brilliant. Zoe Saldana is there, Morgan Freeman, and it really follows this, elite group of, military personnel who work with the CIA, and they kind of deal with various geopolitical issues that America is involved in.
But you reckon I should watch it?
I think you should watch it. If that's your kind of tea, then absolutely
People
watch
keep mentioning it to me.
So if I'm not watching series, then it's sport or selective things, right? And so I don't know what the latest TV show is on Mzansi Magic that's driving everybody insane. And no disrespect, and now and then I'll watch something that I'm really interested in. I know Shaka Ilembe is coming out. I love history, so that'll
be good.
That's something. So I don't know whether TV is shit or not. I also hear stories about channels struggling, and I'm thinking, like, what's going on? Is it YouTube? Is it, the younger generation? But there's also an older generation, a huge, generation of people that grew up on TV. Are they also, migrating a bit, or is it more options out there for people to say, you don't have to sit and watch this thing the whole time. You can watch other things on your phone, on your tablet, etc. Is there more competition for eyeballs?
Maybe. I don't miss that either, by the way. I think TV is, this, it's a lot of hurry up and wait.
Ooh.
And that just drives me crazy because, again, it's so different to radio, which I was used to at the time. Radio, you'd pitch up, switch that mic on, and you go. Then it's live. You don't do like 3 hours of post-production and 3 hours of preparation, and you have to do this and that, and this isn't, let's record that again.
Oh, my word.
No, radio's live, so once it's done, it's finished.
It's madness. I mean, I remember interestingly, I was a judge on one of these talent search competitions called The Remix.
Yeah.
And it was about, finding the best remixers in the country, etc. And we shot literally the whole day. Call time would be like 11. You only start shooting at like 2. So what am I doing for 3 hours, right?
Oh, man.
Because it is a lot of hurry up and wait.
Imagine being an actor.
Oh, yeah. I mean, their call times are like, what, 6 o'clock?
Yeah, and then they spend the whole day sitting there drinking shit coffee or just on their phones, I suppose. And then, like, they get to shoot for half an hour, and that's it. You're like, my whole day? You had to take up my whole day?
Yeah.
I'd go crazy.
I had a couple of cameos on one of the TV shows on SABC One, Bettina. It's a spin-off of Ugly Betty.
Yes.
Yeah. Coming on as myself, etc. And same thing. It's like you hurry up and wait. So I'm thinking, oh my gosh. I would always tell the producers, I'm like, okay, listen, darling. Do you want me there at 2 or are we starting to shoot at 5? Like, kind of. But you know what? You know what I did enjoy, Gareth. I did I had a role on Trending SA, which was on SABC3. It was a daily show covering current affairs, whatever's on social media, and in the news, etc. I was on there for about a year, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. It was a live show, number one.
Yeah.
Number two, it was literally what was happening that day or was topical in that week or at that time. And that, to me, like resonated with me because it was real. Yeah. You could get into issues. We might have spoken about you. I don't remember. But, it really, I don't know what you may have done then.
Neither do I.
But it really was that kind of show where we spoke about everything that was happening and everybody who was making news, anyone who was topical. And that's the kind of TV I enjoy doing.
Yeah.
Right. And then it dawned on me that growing up watching, late night talk shows.
Yes.
David Letterman, Jimmy Fallon, Jimmy Kimmel, Chelsea Lately, all those that is the thing I enjoy the most. And then I realized that this is why I enjoyed late night talk shows, because of the stuff they did and some of the skits they did and all of that stuff.
I think that was also a very special time in television, but there wasn't anything else.
Yeah.
When Letterman and Leno were doing those shows, and it was super competitive, and they had massive shares of audience, both of them. There wasn't the internet. And what we've got to come to terms with is that everyone is now in competition with everyone. Right now, there are people who might not watch you and I having this conversation because they want to watch a kid unboxing a toy.
Yeah.
So we can sit here and go, oh, that's really stupid. But if people choose to watch the unboxing of the toy,
that's what it is.
You can't argue with them.
There's a viral clip that's going around and that's what people want to watch. Or they want to go on Instagram and watch people's toes the whole day, whatever it is.
Yeah, and just reaction videos.
Reaction videos. Right. That's the thing now. That's a huge thing.
They've been telling me we got to do reaction videos. I'm like, well, the show is just my reacting to things that are happening.
One of my favorite reaction videos, and a series of them, different YouTubers, was during the Rugby World Cup.
Yeah.
And how Americans were just like blown away by this rugby thing and like just how they reacted. It's like, oh man, it was just, and I sat there watching those reaction videos, right?
But Americans are good at reaction. They do that naturally. I think it's got something to do with show and tell at school when they're kids, because they do all kinds of things we don't do. And they're told by their parents, you can be a TV star, you could be a Hollywood actor or whatever. I don't know. We in this country, we're like, you better be humble and you better shut up.
Yeah, I mean, for some time I gave away bursaries and I still do it, putting people through school to do media. And over the years...
Because you were at Boston,
Yeah,
right?
I was at Boston.
Right.
Over the years, I would always be interested in the parents and what they say to their kids about, this idea of getting into broadcasting. And a lot of kids would say that their parents feel, broadcasting is not a real career, entertainment is not a real career. But I think over the years that has changed, and I think that's why institutions like Boston and the likes still exist, because there's a need to train people for the various industries that we have.
I wish you wouldn't do that. It's just so horrible what you're saying now, because there are only like 10 spaces.
No, but
now you're giving these. When someone says they want to study broadcasting or something, I say to them, no. That's a terrible idea. Go and become a teacher or a doctor or a social worker or start your own business. That's what we need. And then they go, oh, but I love radio, I love TV, and I want to talk on the microphone. I'm like, do something else. You're doing the opposite.
Here's what I say.
Now, and I found out who it is that's telling all these fuckers to go and do that stuff. It's you.
It's me. I'm responsible. Arrest me. Arrest that man. Arrest him now. The thing is, I'm very honest about the industry to a lot of
so you say I'm being dishonest.
I even go as far as saying, okay, here's what we're going to do.
Yeah.
We're going to record you on the mic and we're going to give you an experience.
Yeah.
Just, try it out. You think you've got it, whatever. Try it out. Listen back to your shit and then you tell me if this is what you envisaged.
You have the time for this?
Yeah, I make the time for it.
my
I help
God.
people with radio demos, Gareth. You'd never do that.
Not a chance.
I do that all the time.
No.
Because I understand that radio, especially from an on-air point of view, is not for everyone. You've got to have the talent, but it's very brutal. It's either you have it or you don't.
Sure.
Whatever it is. Whatever your magic is, it's either you have it or you don't. In a room of 20 people, not everybody's going to get that radio gig. So you've got to be really, really special to be on radio. It doesn't always appear that way when we see some of the things that do happen where anybody just walks in and boom, they've got a radio gig. But the point is, you've got to be special. You've got to, one actor that I respect, Eric Mieni, he's also very controversial on his views. He once said that you need to have above average intelligence to be on radio. Now, you can either take that literally or take it in what he's trying to say, you've got to know more than the average Joe. One of the reasons people like you, Gareth, is because you seem to know a lot.
Well, they're wrong. They're wrong.
And there's something about listening to people who have a general sense of things more than you. You may not be an expert in any of those things, quite frankly, but that is one of the biggest appeals and the reasons why people listen to radio. And so you've got to remember that. And so I always tell, young people to say, listen, just because you want to be on radio, it doesn't mean you're going to get that opportunity. It doesn't mean you're going to get the shot.
That's true. Listen, I applaud the fact that you're helping young people who want to get into broadcasting, because some of them just might need that word of encouragement to launch an incredible career. But I don't think we need any more broadcasters.
What do you think we need?
We need engineers, teachers, doctors.
We've always needed
policemen. That. We need people who are starting up little trading businesses, people who are salvaging electronics, all kinds of unglamorous but very, very important jobs.
Absolutely. 100%.
It's easy, again, for us to talk about the high-profile media jobs or the CEO jobs, and everybody thinks that that's everyone's dream. It's not everyone's dream. There are kids who want to be policemen. I remember being a little kid, and I didn't want to be an astronaut. Or there was a time where I thought, like, I could be a damn fine history teacher. And I think maybe that would be my B or C or D plan if everything fucked out. I'd go and teach history, mostly because I'd love it, because no one becomes a history teacher for the money, right? But there's nothing wrong with that. And because a career is exciting and gets you that reputation we were talking about in the first hour with social media, it seems like it should be a more lucrative and exciting career prospect for people. But actually, like, we need the people who are keeping things clean, who are fixing the roads, who are doing the electricity connections that go up and down, that are plumbing. And I don't mean to patronize these people at all, because let me tell you, I speak a lot about electricians and plumbers and how vital they are in our society.
Oh, yeah.
And we need people who can put up the street signs and fix them, and people who can make geysers and boilers and things like that. Doesn't sound like a glamorous and front-facing public job, but man, those people are so important.
Yeah.
Society grinds to a halt if you don't have those people.
One
If there are less radio people, it's not going to grind to a halt. You know?
It's one of the things that I always joke about, to say, when the world ends,
Yeah.
for example, and there's some sort of like devastation, right?
Yeah.
Do you think a radio host is going to be saved?
No one's going to say, shit, on my zombie apocalypse team, I really need a radio
There's
guy.
a show you should watch called Paradise. You should
yeah?
watch that show. Brilliant. It's also similar.
Is that the one with the...
Yes, with the dome,
yeah,
etc.
Yeah. Okay, so
I doubt there's a radio host in that dome.
So I started it. Yeah, I started watching that show, and then I just fell off. This happens to me often. I'll watch a show, and then I just like, nah, this is no good. So I'll pick it up again, because I still want to see how it ends, but I just lost interest.
Yeah. But sorry, Gareth, one of the things that I did a lot of, on my radio career, particularly at Wide Metro, was try and profile people in different careers, however I pitched it as a feature or as something I did regularly, to try and create the idea that there's more to life than being a rap star, a DJ, a singer.
Sure.
I remember interviewing the first black female pilot that I'd ever met. I think her name is Tumi Katisi. Pardon if I got the surname wrong, right? And she learned how to fly. There's a school here in Germiston. I didn't know about it. We went there. I said, show me where you learned. Because I know not everybody can be a pilot. It's damn expensive, etc. She was young, and she's still a pilot. And so those are the things that excited me to say, this is what I want people to see. That it's not just, radio DJs and celebrities and whatever that make the world tick. There's many other things that you can do. And that's what we need.
I want to know what you think of the Emmanuel Macron video. I saw this yesterday, and I thought there's got to be a joke, right? The red sleeve you will see entering stage left is his wife, Brigitte Macron. Don't be like that, Simpiwe. Simpiwe watches Candace Owens, and she thinks that Brigitte Macron is a man. Right? Is that right? Yes. That's a fair summary. Boys being boys. And she says it's just boys being boys. But you take a look at this. Tell me if this is a domestic dispute gone horribly wrong in front of the cameras. Wow. Okay. So, as Mo said, she doesn't even take his hand when he reaches out at the top of the stairs to walk down with her.
Oof,
she's like, no.
That is actually what gives credence to the fact that there was a dispute. That whatever was going on there, which we don't know, wasn't so cool.
But I think this proves that she is a woman, because a woman would continue to hold a grudge after the physical interaction. A guy, if it was a guy fighting with a guy, they'd hit each other and then they'd carry on. They'd move on.
Yeah, there was
they'd
definitely some sort of disagreement. I don't know what about. But it also just shows you, these people are human. They have fights before some occasion that they need to go to. A sitting president can have a fight with their partner before they address the nation. They're human.
Have you seen Melania's face sometimes? She sometimes doesn't want to be there, right?
There are endless videos. There are endless videos of that. And so it just, but then what it also does is, is it a fair reflection of their relationship? I mean, you can't take one incident and say, oh, that marriage or whatever is a shit show.
So Conga Chris says that's Elton John in a wig. If you look closely, she uses both hands, says Sharon. Judas says it's straight up GBV. Someone had one drink too many on the plane. Slippery Pickle says gays hold grudges too. Bitcoin But said he got manhandled with a big capital M-A-N. Wolf Printing says they say they were joking around, but she is a man. See, people love a conspiracy theory.
Look, rugby's big in France, so we definitely know where she got that
answer,
from.
Yeah. She's been watching the rugby. Oh, man.
Yeah.
What a crazy, insane world we live in.
Yeah.
Because this kind of stuff would never have made it into the public realm before.
Absolutely.
I love the fact that so much of the shit they can't hide anymore.
Yeah.
The press isn't the press. It's now like people with phones.
Yeah. Yeah.
You don't have to be a credentialed journalist
No.
who has a degree and works for a reputable news agency like, Agence France Presse, for example.
Yeah.
Now, if Macron and his wife are having a fight and she decks him or grabs his face on the plane, we're all going to see it.
Yeah, whether you want to call it citizen journalism or whatever. Now we're in the realm, Gareth, where people say, oh, the camera person had one job, to get the real angle that everybody wanted to see.
Yeah.
Whether it was a fight or something controversial that happened is like, that recording, that moment where people say, hang on, where's my phone?
Yeah.
Let me record this. That almost...
What I
game.
find very odd, though, and I want to have your thoughts on this too, is these people who record everything. Like I saw this chick the other day. She was in a car accident, and then the first thing she does in her car accident is, "Well, I've just been in a car accident." You're like, "Honey, you've got things to sort out." The last thing on my mind, if I were in a car accident, would be, "Oh, I need to record this and post it on my Instagram."
Sure.
That's bizarre.
It is absolutely bizarre, and it's almost like, what are you looking for?
And when you see someone else. Like you see these people, and there's someone who's in real trouble. And instead of helping that person, they film it.
Yeah, of course. I saw a video of somebody recording somebody getting hijacked. And obviously it's quite tricky, but I'm thinking, is there no one you can call to say, listen, this has just happened, call the police, alert them, give them whatever info. And so that's the world we live in, where people are so obsessed with posting content about whatever is happening in their lives. And the question I have is it for approval? Is it for, what is it for? Especially in moments where you're supposed to be a citizen first and then a content creator after.
Just attention seeking. What is your policy with your kids? Are you worried about this stuff? Because whenever I have parents in here, I'm always like, shit, how are you going to deal with that?
Yeah, I mean, I was saying to someone the other day that my daughter, who's 9, speaks so fast. And I'm like, it's the damn YouTube videos. Because all these guys, that's how they speak, right? And so it just shows you the impact that sort of stuff has, because she spends a lot of time on YouTube. We control it as much as possible. But, the reality is that the online world, the online space, that is their playing field.
Yeah.
We talk about, stuff, whether it's stuff that's got bad language, things that are promoting.
Has she got her own phone?
She's got her iPhone.
At 9?
At 9. I mean, that's even by my standards, it's absolutely diabolical.
Yeah, I mean, but what are you going to do, right? Because again, I'm reticent to hop into this. I don't have kids, but I see my nephews, and I'm like, just keep those phones away from them as long as possible.
Yeah, we tried. We tried, but now when you have, because I've got a couple of kids, and so obviously when my son got a phone at age 10, it's like, yeah, but he got a phone when he was this age. I also need to get a phone.
Right.
It was a hand-me-down, but it's still an iPhone and it's still a phone.
Sure.
And she's got full access, and she has a tablet.
You remember those shit phones we used to have, like before they brought out smartphones?
Yeah. The first phone I got was like a Motorola. It looked like an Easter egg. I mean, all you could do was snake and make a phone call. Play Snake, make a phone call.
That's
Play
right.
Tetris, make a phone call. Send an SMS.
Eventually, they gave us the SMS, but you'd have to type like 5 times on the P to get a Q,
And who sends SMSs these days? We send WhatsApp messages and iMessages and whatever.
Yeah.
So we're very cognizant about that sort of stuff in our household. But one of the biggest issues I have is the headsets. And, my teenage son will be sitting there, with his pods in, and I'd say something and I'd get no reaction. And then I say something and then I get no reaction. And then I look at him and he has no clue. He's in his own world. He's listening to Travis Scott and
suddenly you become like one of those TV dads from the 90s. He's like, do you hear me? Kind of thing.
And then I'm always like, one ear out. Like I lose my shit.
Yeah.
Right? Because I always say to him, what if there's an emergency? What if somebody needs help? What if, we're being robbed?
Please, they've shown these people who, like, they get hit by trains, they walk straight into poles because they're not paying attention. They can't hear what's going on around them.
Yeah. I heard a story about a lady who was jogging with her headsets on and she got hit by a car. And apparently the driver was hooting.
Well,
I don't know
serves
if he lost
her right
control.
for running because, that's just the stupid thing to do.
So I always lose it with him. I'm like, dude, like, yes, I get it, but you can't have, especially when you're at home.
Yeah,
you're with people. You've got people around you.
Yeah,
like, are you saying that we don't matter? Yes, Kelvin Momo is an amazing Amapiano producer, but for God's sake,
not now.
You know what I'm saying?
No,
like you can't.
What's the connection to Lesotho?
So my grandfather is from there. So my mom's dad is from there. He came to South Africa as a migrant worker. And he also apparently had terrible migraines. And for some reason, no one in Lesotho could deal with that from a medical point of view.
Oh, okay.
And
so he came here for treatment.
Yeah. And then he worked in the mines. At some stage, he was enlisted in the army in that whole complexity.
Did they sort out his migraines? This is very important.
No, it was never sorted. It was never sorted. And then he settled in Soweto. He forms part of a generation that would probably be regarded as pioneering. I mean, he was born in 1923, so you can imagine. Moved to Soweto, set up a life in Soweto.
But you were born in Dube,
Yes,
right?
I was born in Dube, Soweto. He had a couple of shops in Soweto. He had a football club that he started. So that kind of story, right? But Lesotho is home because that is where my ancestors are from.
Sure.
Whether it's my mother's father or my dad's father. So I spend a lot of time there. I have a lot of family there. I even did the Mushweshwe walk last year, which is a popular walk. It's basically a celebration and a commemoration of the journey of
King Mushweshwe and the original Lesotho people.
Exactly. Yeah. Because without that journey, Lesotho would never have existed. Because essentially it was about Mushweshwe moving his people from, war and, being attacked
He took them up on that mountain.
Yes, on Thaba Bosiu.
Bosiu.
Yeah, and from Thaba Bosiu, he was able to defend his country. Yes, he enlisted the help of, I think it was Queen Victoria at the time.
Sure.
And that's why Lesotho became
and he made a couple of deals with the Afrikaners at some stage.
Yeah,
but he was an operator.
Absolutely. Before diplomacy was diplomacy, I think that's kind of like what he demonstrated. So what Lesotho represents for me is more than just, a home of my ancestors. It's like a symbol. And I know people talk about, it's the 10th province. Let's just take it.
No, it's amazing. I mean, I think that what you've just told me about the history of Lesotho is exactly why people should pay attention to the place, even though, what was it, Trump said, who even knows where Lesotho is?
That time there's an entire U.S. embassy 5 minutes from the border. 5 minutes from the border. There's an embassy there.
But the story of Lesotho becoming an independent nation actually has to do with Pikslikai Sakaseme as well, who made representation in London at the time that Britain was divesting itself of colonial interests and all the rest of it, and he secured the independence of Lesotho and Swaziland at that stage. Now Eswatini. And he was a remarkable human being because, again, showing you that excellence has no obstacles in its way, right? This guy was educated at American Ivy League universities.
Sure.
And at Cambridge in the UK, and then went over as a black man before black people even had a vote in the Republic of South Africa. He established the ANC, started it. He was the founder, along with Dube, and then went there as a lawyer and made representations to the British government and said, this shouldn't be considered part of the Union of South Africa. These are separate countries that told the story of Moshweshwe and how Lesotho started, and told the story of the king of Swaziland at that stage too.
And so that to me represents sovereignty. You can't just say Lesotho is a 10th province because it's landlocked. There's a
Didn't
reason.
they invade us once, though?
The treaty.
I mean, when
it was
Mangosuthu,
it was the other way around.
Mangosuthu. Oh, okay, I don't want to get this wrong.
It was
Because
the other way
Mangosuthu
around.
Buthelezi was
Yeah.
like acting president.
Yeah, and
we know these Zulus.
He just had
Simpiwe,
one
your
job.
people, hey? Flex, your people.
And I mean,
Give the Zulus this much of a chance, they'll try and take Lesotho again.
And I think obviously there was a lot of political unrest, and I think the leadership in Lesotho at the time had kind of given the sense that they can't handle this on their own, and I think that's the signal he took to say, listen,
Well,
we're
we
going...
must be careful, because if the people in Lesotho decide to piss in that water, we're going to end up drinking it.
Yeah. I mean, those mountains, Gareth, are full of water. Those are among some of the highest mountains in the world. It's beautiful. I mean, the beauty, the potential of that country. So for me, Lesotho represents sovereignty. It represents an idea of that Moshweshwe started to say, these are my people, I will protect them by all means necessary from all the impact. That's why there's never really been apartheid in Lesotho, right? Because they were never, they were a protectorate of Britain. They were never under, oppressive rule.
But dude, I love that you're proud of that. Not, again, because I go around telling people I'm proud of them, but because there is something about identity. When you know where you come from and you know where you're going to, I think you have that connection in a way that it means you don't have to prove things to other people all the time. Because you've got a sense of self, a sense of conviction and purpose, a clarity of vision that just makes all the rest of it a game.
Yeah.
You're like, well, okay, for the last 200-300 years, that's where my people have come from.
Yeah.
That's where I feel most at home. Would you ever have a place there?
Yes.
Like a little place up in the mountains?
Were you going to say a little rondavel?
No, I was going to say, I don't know. I mean, you've probably done okay out of media. I'm sure you could afford more than a rondavel.
Definitely.
Do you wear the what?
Mokorotlo.
Mokorot.
Yeah, the Sotho hat.
What was I calling it?
I don't know what you were, because it looks like a bit like the roof of a rondavel. Maybe that's why. Yeah, the Mokorotlo Basotho
And the blanket,
hat.
you got one of those?
And the blanket, Siana Marena.
Right.
I've got plenty of those. And it's winter, so they'll be quite useful.
Damn, dude.
You
right now,
get one.
I need one.
Yeah, but I would definitely build a home there, and it's something that's literally on my priority list. And it's a priority because I want to be able to have a claim in the land of my forefathers.
Damn right.
And
then give your children that as part of their legacy.
Absolutely. And so that's the one thing about, my future that I'm really excited about at a personal level. And I mean, like I said, I think Lesotho represents so much. I love the running jokes about zamazamas and all of that, and it's it's all true. And I hate the fact that they're involved in all sorts of criminal activity. We can debate that type of mining and
Those
what we
aren't
need to
just
do.
people from Lesotho.
Yeah, but some of them are. Some
Sure,
of them are. Some
sure.
of them are. But by and large, Lesotho has had a really pivotal role in building South Africa, whether it's through the labor, as in people from Lesotho, migrant workers building roads and working in the mines, etc., and on many other social, cultural levels. So yeah, it's a very important place for me.
Yeah, and I know that you're also a massive football fan. I know next to zero about football, but I get really excited around World Cup time. And then when I was a kid, when I was like 14, 15, I knew everything. I knew who was on what teams, and I'm talking locally. I even joined the Sundowns Supporters Club.
You did what?
Yeah, Mamelodi Sundowns Supporters Club. I knew all those players back then. And then again, like with these series, you just lose interest along the way. Sure. What is it that keeps you interested in football? Because some of it has become, to my eyes, formulaic.
Oh, you mean the diving and
the
theatrics and the VAR
even all the buying of this talent for this club and the managers and
it's glam, it's Hollywood.
Yeah, it's like the WWE
it's
to
sports.
me.
It's big
these
business.
guys pretending,
No, look, I played football from when I was very young. I even played for a club called Marks Park in Emerentia.
Yeah.
I don't even know if it's still around, but I know the
park's still there.
The park is still there. Yes, absolutely. Not so sure about the football club.
Okay.
Played there as a kid. But when I got to high school, Gareth, there was no football. It was just rugby. Because I went to Northcliffe High. That's where I matriculated. And it was like the biggest sort of, shock of my life. I'm thinking, what sport am I going to do?
Yeah.
I tried hockey. I tried the closest thing to football, which
Jesus,
at the time
hockey's
was
dangerous.
hockey. Oh,
Hockey's dangerous. That's not.
I got missed by a ball once during, I think it was a corner, and I didn't get off the line in goal and whatever. But
Yes,
football has been an integral part of my life. My grandfather owned a football club, City Ramblers, back in those days. I played. I support Kaizer Chiefs. I support Barcelona. I even have my own sort of like social club.
Chiefs and Barcelona.
Yeah,
those are pretty good. You haven't had to change your position on either of those.
No.
They've done okay.
No. Yeah, Barcelona is incredible. Chiefs have a great
been
reputation.
A bit disappointing.
But very disappointing. Great reputation, great brand, but just can't seem to get the silverware going. Yes, we got a cup now, which was great. But it's more than just the running around the pitch and whatever. It just represents. There's so many people in football that I rate as well.
You know who I rate and is undervalued in the history of South Africa is Kaiser Motaung. I mean, that guy, for good or for bad, he set up a dynasty.
Yeah.
And he set up a club, and he had such an important role to play at the beginning. He obviously, he didn't last as long as Ivan Khoza in that,
at the forefront.
I'm the boss of this club kind of thing.
Sure.
But those guys had to be pretty gangster in those days to get shit going.
Absolutely, because that's
Right?
that's the terrain they're in. I have the utmost respect for Dr. Kaiser Motaung. I think he's an example. He's a beacon. That transcends football, really. And I agree with you. And I think he is highly respected. We don't see a lot of him now, and I suppose,
he's
age
old,
and all of that. But that's what we need more of, across the spectrum. We need more people like Kaiser Motaung who will build things from scratch, literally from the dust.
Yeah, that's what he did.
Yeah.
And he turned it into a football brand which is so beloved in this country.
Yeah.
So
and well known.
So I'm not going to mock you for the lack of silverware, as you put it. I do want to just refer to this, and I hate today. It sounds like an obituary column, but this can't. We can't end the show without mentioning this guy, because Presley Chweneyagae, who was a South African actor best known for his role in the Oscar-winning film Tsotsi, which you will remember, has died at the age of 40. He was also born in Soweto. And news of his death has elicited an outpouring of grief on social media, fans expressing shock and sorrow. A recent captionless image posted on his official Instagram account has further underscored the somber mood among his followers. I don't know any details about what happened to him, but this was, at 40, he's still a young man, And it seemed to me like he still had so much ahead of him. What a sad story.
Absolutely. Great talent. Hell of a guy. I know him sort of, beyond the screens. We've met many times.
Yeah.
In fact, the first time I met him was at some dingy spot in Bella Bella that I was booked to go play at as a DJ.
Yeah.
Some years ago. So there I am, playing. I'm enjoying my set. And then I just see this guy come up straight up to me, and he's just like so excited to see me, and he's happy and he's lit. And that was the first time I met him.
What a great sort of memory, because I've interviewed him maybe 2 or 3 times, but for you to have actually known him and seen him when he's not performing, he's not being interviewed.
Yeah.
I wonder what happened.
It's a mystery, and we wait to see. But my first interaction with the guy is literally what we got to see as his character on The River, which was the same kind of guy. And in my mind, I'm thinking, like, this is perfect. The role you play is actually who you are. And we had a really good time that night, and then I'd bump into him a lot at parties and whatever. And
Do you still do gigs?
Yeah, I still do gigs. Oof,
You enjoying that stuff?
I enjoy it. I don't do as many as I this whole thing of 4 gigs in one night. Nah.
I heard somebody the other day, because I got into an Uber, and there was someone on, I don't even know what station it was or whatever, and this girl was rattling off. She was going to 3 different places that night, and I thought she must be very tired.
Yeah, no, it is.
'Cause, I mean, I did 3 once on a night in December in a year, and I was like, nah, this is terrible. Because it was, I landed in PE,
Yeah.
I had something in PE, then I had to go to some other place, then some other place.
Sure.
I had to drive the whole way there.
Yes.
It was like, you can't do this. Bad things are going to happen.
Yeah. I mean, it certainly has evolved with me. I mean, I've gone through my phases where I would have a gig in Soweto, then go to Pretoria, then go to Rustenburg, then have like a 4 a.m. at Taboo in Senses. I've done all of that. Like carnage. Like absolute carnage. Like you break your back.
Yeah.
Like you really just crush your balls.
And the next day you're a disaster.
Oh, you
right?
finished. But the recovery then was different. I mean, now it's a
I
bit
think
of
one of the reasons we are older and hangovers last a long time and it's not fun.
you only recover by Wednesday.
Definitely.
Yeah, so this has recovered me.
But I think one of the things that did keep me doing that for long and surviving was that I never did more than Fridays and Saturdays because of the morning show.
Sure.
So I'd have to be up early, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday,
Yeah.
and Friday. So you could only do 2 days of that.
Sure.
Which means you had to get back into it. Work
Absolutely.
hard, play hard. You know?
Now, crazy story, Gareth. During my time at Y,
Yeah.
I mean, I would have a gig, say, at Capital on a Thursday night, and then have a radio show in the morning at 6.
Yes.
And sometimes
Oh, no, I did
you
1 or 2
literally-
of those,
You,
yeah.
you're literally leaving from the club
And you look and you smell like shit, but luckily it's radio, right?
straight to the studio.
And everyone else who's working with you is looking at you
Exactly.
like, this guy smells like he's been in a shebeen,
Exactly.
smoke.
And half
Puzza.
half the time your team is there with you, so the whole team is like is a mess. And that was just the rock star nature of the lifestyle that we had, etc. But one thing I really love about DJing, I mean, I was in Middelburg on Saturday.
Yeah.
Is the traveling, Gareth. I got to know my country through the different areas in the country that I got booked at.
And the people you meet, I
Yes.
think is true. But
Yes.
but what about the...
I mean,
the-
who goes to Uppington? I was in Uppington, right? Tula Mahash in Mpumalanga. I mean, for fuck's sakes, you know what I mean? And there you are. So you're literally playing everywhere from Durban to Cape Town, Port Elizabeth,
Yeah.
Botshabelo, Tabanchu, you name it. And I really got to know my country. I got to understand the socio-economic complexities. You know, when you get to a town, and there was a place in the west, in the Northern Cape, I think it's Postmansburg or something like that.
Yeah.
And I got there and I said, do these people even know they're in South Africa? Do they know that Cyril is their president? Like, are they aware that they're actually
Probably
citizens? Because that's how remote it felt.
Yeah.
And then you get the sense. I mean, I grew up in Soweto, right? And then you get to Khalishiwe for the first time in Kimberley, and you're like, what is going on? People live like this? Like
Different world.
Different world. And that's what it showed me.
I think that's a very valid lesson to have picked up on. The other one that I was grateful for when I was doing those gigs, because I stopped doing them about 8 years ago. But it was good to do because it keeps you in touch with what people are up to,
Absolutely.
what they care about, what
Sure.
they're interested in, music.
Yeah.
You mix with such a variety of people. You know, where am I going to interact with 18, 20, 25-year-olds
Sure.
in my group of friends otherwise? Where am I going to interact with people from totally different parts of South Africa? See what they are interested in, see what they care about, and have conversations with them. Because, you know, that's the nice thing about staying after it at a gig like that is you have a few drinks with people.
Sure.
You will find something interesting out.
Absolutely. And also with language. You know, like there's different brands of Setswana, whether in the Northwest or in the
Right.
Northern Cape. There's different brands of Sesotho, whether in the Free State or whether in the Vaal or whether, you know what I mean? And all these things
About
just become more
200
apparent.
different kinds of Indian and Afrikaans accent that I picked up on the way too, man. Yes. sis.
Durban and Durban.
Big time. Big time. Sure.
Yeah,
Hey,
but it's beautiful, yeah.
Did you hear about this? A South African Powerball player won 68 million rand after purchasing a ticket via the Absa banking app.
All I'm going to say with that, and I'm not sure if they've claimed their money yet.
They
but
have.
If I won that kind of money, I wouldn't quit my job.
No.
I wouldn't quit.
You wouldn't tell anyone except maybe your wife.
Yeah. But can you imagine if I won that kind of money?
Maybe.
Gareth? How,
Do you hear what
how
I
would
said?
I conceal
Maybe.
that?
Yeah,
How would
maybe
I
to-
conceal that?
Oh, dude.
How would I hide that I've won 65 million as a
Well,
public figure?
You can ask people at the, what is it? Ituba. You
Yeah.
can say to them, I don't want anyone to know. but I mean, what would you do? Splash out and buy fancy things? I saw Waras talking about Mac G this week. Someone posted a video of Mac G driving some drop top car, and they said he's living his best life kind of thing. And Waras said Mac G is actually a very frugal guy. He doesn't flash his money around. He just adds up the paper, is what he said.
Yeah.
Would you be flashy, or
No, I wouldn't
you
be flashy.
wouldn't tell anybody?
No,
but
I wouldn't be flashy.
But you'd have that pile of cash.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, I would have a pile of cash. A couple of really good properties, maybe a couple of developments.
You'd help out a few people here and there.
Well, help out of my entire family.
Sure.
And do something meaningful, but also take care of myself and take care of my family. I wouldn't buy a G-Wagon.
Nah, hell no. Hell no.
But I would get a very. But you see, this is the thing, Gareth. It's like when you've experienced all these things, it's like, I drive a Merc. I've driven all the cars I've ever wanted.
And once you got that out of your system,
exactly,
you don't want it anymore. And I don't think that. Sure, when you're in your 20s, I think you want to do that stuff. Every guy worth his salt is going to want to drive a sports car, right?
Yeah.
There comes a point though where you go, actually, especially for you now, with you, I've got the kids. I got to have something to transport them to and from school and all this shit.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, exactly. And all
so,
the netball
so it
tournaments.
becomes practical, and you don't eventually think about it. You just get into the car. You hope it has aircon if it's hot, heater if it's cold.
Yeah.
You could play some music. You could listen to your phone.
It's got space. It can load
Some
my
space.
entire family.
You can put shit in the back because there's always so much shit to put in the car.
Let me tell you.
And you can use it to go away if you
Yeah,
want to go away. But that's
absolutely.
kind of all you're thinking.
Yeah. So I wouldn't be flashy. I wouldn't rock up at a club and buy 10 bottles of Ace of Spades. Nah. I'm not that kind of person. And also, I feel like nobody really cares about that aspect of my life. And nobody cares what I drive. Nobody cares how big my house is or what sneakers I wear.
But that's great. That's the perfect place to be.
Yeah, because I've never made it a thing for me. I
Yeah.
appreciate quality. I love clothes. I love sneakers. I love a nice car, but it's not who I am. It doesn't define the essence of who I am.
Okay, so no private plane or yacht for you.
Oh, no.
Judas says, great guest today. Got Gareth and the live chats fired up. Go Mo, elbow cough. Well, I know why you're doing an elbow cough, but yeah, Judas, you're right. You've been a tremendous guest. I knew you would be, by the way, but just because you're so good at this stuff. In any case, it's your job, and you know exactly what you're doing. But I've had a lot of fun talking to you this morning. Thank
Gareth,
you.
it's been an absolute pleasure. It's always an honor because I think and I'll say this to everybody listening in and watching now, that Gareth is one of the broadcasters that I've always admired.
Thank you,
I grew
dude.
up listening to Gareth Cliff. I loved the type of radio you did. I appreciated the kind of impact that you had in your own space. Getting people talking, writing letters to the president, all of that stuff is, that's what it is, right? That's what it's about. And so thank you for inspiring a generation of broadcasters. You, in my opinion, are one of those people.
Thanks, man. That's
who
right back
didn't
at
waste, your time on air. And so when I get to interact with you at this level, for me, it's always an honor and it's always a privilege, honestly.
Well, I'm sorry it's taken so long, but I'm very happy to have you here, and thank you for that. I've had to learn to become better at taking compliments, but it's a great pleasure to sit and talk to someone who I regard as a peer in the industry. And long may your success continue.
Thank you, and yours as well.
Thanks, Mo.
Yeah.
All right,
and good luck to waking up.
Yeah, don't worry. We're going to be fixing that soon too. I've got plans. All right, everybody, have an excellent Wednesday and enjoy this middle of the week stuff. We'll be back on Friday morning early with Simpiwe back in this seat instead of that seat. But we've still got time for her to do all kinds of things. She's impressed. I mean, look, she brought you in here, Mo. Who knows? Maybe we just we keep Simpiwe, huh? What do you think? Producer Sims. Among other things. Don't tell James, he's got enough to worry about at the moment. All right, thank you, Flex. Thank you, Sims. Most of all, thank you.